Welcome into Rushing the Field, National Weekly College Football Podcast from NBC Sports. I'm Joshua Perry, and as y'all can see, Nicole Auerbach is not here. She's gallivanting across the world once again. And so we bring in our friend, Jordan Cornette, who, if you've seen some of the basketball coverage on NBC and Peacock, you would have seen him there. But we're very glad that he'll be joining us as well on the road on the College Countdown football show. This year, we both just got back from Vegas. Jordan, are you all recovered up? You feeling good?
As I'm coughing here, that is not because I'm ill or anything like that. I just had something caught in my throat. It was a great trip to Vegas. Wish we weren't flying that far for media days. A couple other people echoed the same sentiment. Cough, cough. Coach James Franklin and a few others. Yeah. But it was a productive few days to be with the team, most importantly, which I'm happy to be a part of. And spend some time, but also we got some interesting things to come out of there, and also just to see some familiar faces and kind of get a better feel for what's going to be a great Big Ten football season.
Yeah, this is always one of the fun ones for me. It feels like the unofficial start of the college football season, and to your point, you know, we all convene together for the first time of the year, and really it's like the only time that all of us get to be together at the same time, because Noah and Todd are obviously always going to be on the road. You're out there. Sometimes we might get an analyst back in studio or a host back in studio for a one-off week, but like having everybody together is great. And then being able to catch up with coaches, being able to see the players, which in this day and age is so interesting to me to watch them because of the NIL exposure that they have, but really seeing the behind-the-scenes moments, maybe getting a little bit more personal with them, a little bit more vulnerable, or seeing their personality, I always think is fun. So for me, had a good week. I think Vegas was weird. I mean, I want your thoughts on it, just generally. It is. Like, I'm not going to sit here and mince words. Like, there was a lot of fun that came out of it. It certainly was weird.
Yeah, and I think the weirdest part is, having been like you, both as a player, but also as somebody covering this, being in those media day spaces, there's signage everywhere. You're the big show in town, in whatever town it happens to be in, whether it's a Chicago or an Indianapolis. The venue is a Big Ten centric place where you are taking over that place. In Las Vegas, you're walking through the casino, you're going through the convention center, you catch a small sign and you're there. And this is no knock on the conference. I see what they're trying to do. It's the spectacle of it. You're trying to also make the West Coast schools feel a part of this ever-evolving and robust blueprint. I get it. But it didn't feel like it was the big show in town. And that's always going to be a challenge for anything when you put it in Las Vegas. So that being said, that part was certainly odd. I would peel back the curtain a little bit and share with everybody, which makes me really excited for the season as you talk about Noah and Todd and Catherine and Matt Castle and you and me and everybody, Ahmed, all of us hanging out there, is they put all the networks in a room for a dinner one of the nights. And far and away, the loudest, most boisterous group was the NBC Peacock group. And I think we turned a lot of heads like, dang, those guys over there seem to really like each other. They're having a lot of fun. So if that's a precursor for what the year is going to be like, I think everybody's going to be excited.
Yeah, for better or for worse, things were jumping over where we were. I think it is a good point that you make. And like, I'm not trying to pump our own tires or anything, but one thing that I can say for certain about our group is that we all genuinely like each other and we all get along. And I'm not sure that's the case for every other group. Not to say people are like fighting and bickering, but this genuine like friendship that's developed, I do think is key. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the event feeling big, like I think Vegas in and of itself does feel big in a lot of ways. Like I was walking through and I was passing the sports book and they had the CBS, one of their college football shows on. And there's a full screen panel with Luke Altmaier's stats from last year. And I'm like, that's unique, right? Like, that's a sports book. Like, it's on the big screen in the middle. There are people who might be making wagers based off the information they're getting right there. And Luke Altmaier's in the building, right? So, like, that's not something you get at Lucas Oil Stadium. But to your point, it's never going to be the biggest show. Now, I do want to mention Big Ten's going to take basketball tournament to Vegas, right? So I think part of the approach there was maybe getting the lay of the land. You mentioned the West Coast schools not having to travel as far, but Petitti was also pretty honest too, where he was like, yeah, there was just like a logistical issue, and we got our wires crossed, and we couldn't get Lucas Oil Stadium. So I'm not exactly sure this was like their number one move either.
Yeah, and I think it was take a good look at Las Vegas for Media Day. I think it'll be some time before it's back there. Also, I can't believe I skipped over, the belle of the ball and Nicole Auerbach, obviously one of those people is also at the table, who I should have mentioned because this is her show with you.
Yeah.
She was also part of our crew hanging out. And is a big
she's great. And now she's having fun over in Singapore.
Singapore. I mean, she's talking about racking up the miles. Is anybody racking up more miles than Nicole right now?
Not right now. Not right now.
Nope.
Who'd you talk to? We had, so for people who don't know how it goes, like the coaches and the players all do podium sessions, but we have individual interview rooms where we do things that'll go for features. We'll do things for social media. So who are some of the people you got to talk to?
I mean, I talked to several players, most notable one being Jeremiah Smith, which I had a great time talking with Jeremiah. I mean, very straight to the point, very focused guy, not a big personality, big in stature for sure. I think one of the interesting things about Ohio State and just going bigger scale here is, and Ryan Day said it, he's like, gone are the days of me bringing my 22-year-old or 23-year-old senior. Like, I didn't have a guy over 21 that traveled with me. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is 19 years old, and he's representing the reigning national champions at Media Day. It speaks to just how much talent is at Ohio State, but they're still going to have to figure some stuff out. So talking to Jeremiah, I was very impressed with his composure and how mature he is at his age, and his work ethic comes out in just his comments. Really, Josh, we're talking to him. Had a chance to talk to a couple coaches. I really enjoyed talking to Deshaun Foster of UCLA. Yeah. He's very happy to have Nico there at the quarterback position. He was very candid about the misconceptions of his quarterback and everybody thinking his move was driven by money. And I don't think it was. I think money is obviously involved with everything transactionally, but he wanted to get back west. And he said that opened the doors for this program to maybe take a massive step. And it all starts with Nico. He didn't shy away from that.
Let's talk about that, because I had an individual interview with Nico Iamaleava, and the conversations around him this spring were a little bit insane. And I felt like it was—
What way?
Well, because everybody's basically like, he blew up a locker room and he left and he was trying to hold a team hostage for money. And I'm going to be completely candid. I do think that part of this has to do with money, right? Like, I don't think all of that reporting is completely false. But from talking to Nico, he is a humble person, right? He talked about his desire to be great. He spoke about his family. He spoke about earning the trust of his teammates. He even said that he didn't, there are regrets about the way that he left Tennessee. He talked about his time at Tennessee very glowingly. To me, it feels like somebody who maybe got a little bit caught up in the external factors, maybe some people who were giving him advice that he wouldn't have, a decision he wouldn't have made if he hadn't gotten that advice. To me, he seems like a kid who's humble. He wants to prove to people that he can be a good player. He, wants to prove that he's a great teammate. His teammates have already embraced him in that way. So I tend to agree with you on your read on Nico. And to your point, I caught up with Foster as well. He loves his quarterback, and he said all the same things. Quiet kid, humble kid, works hard, teammates love him.
But look, it's year 2 for Deshaun Foster, right? And obviously year 1 started very slow. I don't think there was high expectations by any stretch of the imagination, but how they finished the season, they won 4 of their last 6. There was some belief that was growing there. So is momentum going to be heavy going into year 2? No, but when Nico arrives, there is an optimism that wasn't necessarily there, and he didn't shy away from it. He said, everything is tied to my quarterback coming into year 2, and he understands that, and I understand that. Our portal, we started to get some guys and had all of a sudden an interest because they wanted to play along this 5-star quarterback. And so when those things start to take shape for a year 2 guy trying to figure out the identity of his program, to have that cornerstone, that foundational piece, made him feel good, certainly sitting there talking with him.
Yeah, no, and I can totally see that, right? Like, part of your job, if you're Deshaun Foster, is you're trying to reinvigorate a fan base that is there and is proud, but hasn't had necessarily the greatest things to root for in the last handful of years. And part of that is getting a star player, and then the star player attracting other star players. Got to get better on the field as well, but he's certainly doing the offseason portion the right way. So I'll be curious to see what they look like. I talked to Luke Fickell, who coached me at Ohio State. He's my defensive coordinator. And this is going to be a very interesting year for him. This is, I think, a year where a lot of people would say Wisconsin has to take a step and maybe start to look like the program that they were. The schedule, dude. And he's not shying away from it either. He's like, basically looked at me before the interview, was like, don't even ask me about the schedule. Like, I know about the schedule. Like, we know what we're up against. Like, all right, coach. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I honestly don't even know where to set the bar realistically for them because of what they have to face on the field. Like, I'm almost thinking of it from a perspective of, if you could pull one or two upsets, like, are you just really satisfied with your season at that point?
There's 4 or 5 Herculean efforts it's going to take on that schedule. And so if you look at it and say, try and steal 2 of those, I think for certain it's optimistic. In terms of polarizing, if you would have removed the schedule, not polarizing, but intriguing, I would have put Wisconsin at the top of my list, but that schedule just knocks it down to like, it's a survival kind of situation mode for them. Whereas I look at a team like Illinois, didn't get a chance to talk to Bret Bielema, would have loved to. But that's a group that I think is as fascinating as it comes, because
I think you would like Bret, by the way.
And I've had a chance to cover him during his first go round in the Big Ten with Wisconsin in my early days with Big Ten Network. And I loved him. And I know his players love him. And I think he's a hell of a coach. He's going to have to do his best coaching job, interestingly enough, this season, Joshua. And the reason why I say that is, people know about him now. They're not sneaking up on anybody. We heard Coach Loxley talk about a locker room being ravaged by NIL and him losing a locker room. I'm not suggesting that could happen with Illinois. What I am suggesting is you start to feel like you invented football when you have a season like Illinois had last year, and then you start to forget what it takes. Now, he's going to have to manage that. Is there a better guy to do it? Absolutely not. Bret's built for it. But this is a group I'm really looking forward to seeing as we talk about Illinois. Much like we should probably talk about Indiana in terms of an encore from last year, those two, I think, battle it out September 20th in Bloomington, very early in the season, and that one could have CFP implications.
It's so intriguing with like Bret Bielema and coaching a team like this, because at Wisconsin, it certainly felt like nationally they were underdogs, but in the Big Ten, the teams playing Wisconsin knew that they had to swing hard to try to beat them. And I feel like that's where Illinois is right now, where, like, yes, in the grand scheme of things, like, it does feel like it'd be an underdog story, but they're not going to shock anybody when they're good this year. And to your point, he's going to have to control that, but he's built to control it because he's had really good teams in the past. It's not the first time he's had a good football team. I think the guy is as sharp as can be. I think one of the difference makers now that he has a veteran team that he trusts is this idea of him being one of the best game day coaches in the conference. Very detailed guy. He's dialed into situations. Like he's always anticipating what could come next in the game. And I think some of these games, especially if they're going to pull off an upset against a team like Ohio State, for example, probably going to be one in the margins. That would be a game that would, be a tight margin. And he would have to be the guy who is the elite situational coach. They're prepared for everything, can steal a possession here or there. And that's just the way that he likes to play anyway.
Well, look, you're always going to, in any Ohio State versus X team matchup, you're always going to lean the talent is obviously in favor of Ohio State. But in terms of experience, that's going Illinois' way in that one.
Oh, for sure.
And especially at the most important position on the field, at quarterback, and Luke Altmaier. And I had a chance to catch up with him down there in Vegas, and what an impressive young man he is. Yeah. Beyond the fact that we gave him a Rubik's Cube and he was able to solve that thing in 90 seconds while carrying on a conversation with us, he's just got a great feel. Obviously, he has those Ole Miss ties, a relationship with Lane Kiffin down there. He came up to Illinois and really wowed people a season ago. But this is his program. He's ready to lead. He was talking about how he wants his guys on the outside with that receiver core to really prove themselves, so he can know who he's going to. But they're fired up with the continuity that they have with that group. And it starts with the alpha as the signal caller. I'm a big fan of Luke Altmaier.
No, he played really confident ball last year. And you could tell that because he was he was taking his chances throwing the football, but he was putting it in the right spots, and he was putting it, whether coverage wise in the right spots, whether location wise in the right spots. He wasn't turning it over like he did before, and that's how you could tell he was cooking. He's got to carry that over for sure.
Joshua, there is one other guy I quickly would like to mention that I thought was really impressive, and I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him. Aiden Fisher of Indiana.
I didn't.
The All-American linebacker. He's a guy that really embodies, I think, what Indiana's approaching this season kind of feeling. It wasn't a fluke last year.
Yep.
Nobody's head's gotten big. We still got an edge because people are saying we've got a soft schedule and we benefited from that last year. And it's going to be much of the same this year. He's like, no, we're dogs in here. We're war daddies in this locker room. And he's kind of that guy quarterbacking that defense, one of the most talented guys they've had on that side of football in some time. I believe he might be the first All-American linebacker the program's ever had. I'll have to fact check that. But just a flat-out stud, and I was really impressed with him. In talking with him, obviously, he followed from JMU, followed Coach Cignetti up there to Bloomington, and has thrived.
Yeah, no, I mean, his defensive coordinator, Brian Haynes, who was a GA at Ohio State back in the days when I was playing. So I've gotten to know him as a coach now. And I've asked him about his guys, and he's always talking about Fisher. He's like, yeah, like Fisher's just one of those guys. Like
it's infectious.
And he embodies what you need from a defense. Now, I think their defense will be in a little bit of a challenging spot throughout the year because they have to continue to develop. They lost so many good players, but when you have strong leadership, and they say that they've got it on all three levels, and I believe them, they're going to be in a good spot. Now, real quick, I'm going to do something that all of the Big Ten coaches did this past week. They're all talking about schedules, and everybody's like, Indiana's got a soft schedule. And like, for example, why would nobody talks about Missouri's schedule from last year, right?
Yep.
Like Missouri in the SEC, they played Vanderbilt, A&M, they played Auburn, who was not good, Alabama, which was not a great Alabama team. They played Oklahoma, who was not good. South Carolina might have been the toughest team that they played. Missouri all year long. They played Mississippi State and they played Arkansas, right? And so like this is the thing, right? These are the questions that you ask. Why isn't it like that? And so for Indiana, they kind of made a point of saying that they're going to schedule favorably in the non-con if the SEC is only going to play 8 conference games. 100%. And this conversation kept popping up about scheduling and what the approach should be. And the reason why is because of the biggest story, which was CFP expansion and Tony Petitti and how he feels about it. And basically he said that, in terms of whether the Big Ten and SEC are going to agree on a future format, he said, we're obviously not in the same place on these discussions. I think the goal would be to bring the people back together. Every time the two leagues have come together, good things have happened. But he also emphasized that he is not in favor of a format that gives any more decision-making power to the playoff committee.
And very emphatically, too.
Yeah. I mean, when you were listening to that, when you were talking to some of the coaches kind of as you were bopping around, what were you feeling in terms of the scheduling, postseason format, all those different things?
I love that there was an alignment from Petitti down through the coaches and echoing the same sentiment. Everybody felt like, hey, we're playing 9, they're playing 8. This conference has proven it's the best conference in football given what's happened the last 2 seasons. There is a confidence that was across the line exuding from all the main figures within the conference, which was refreshing to me, having been a guy who was covering college football just a few seasons ago in the ACC, and it felt like a one-man band with Dabo's group, and there was a little bit of vibe from Norvell in that flash-in-a-bottle season, but there wasn't a confidence in the conference as a whole. Being back in the Big Ten, a conference I covered for a lot of years back in 2005 to 2014, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And now you're back when it's got all that juice again, too. So they're saying we need 4 spots in this playoff because teams like Illinois, teams like Indiana, teams like maybe a Michigan, teams like maybe a Nebraska or USC, if they end up overachieving, are teams that, because of what our conference is, could end up having 3 losses and need to be in a playoff because they could be dangerous. I like that vibe. Because we've seen it so much with Sankey in the SEC. Once a narrative is carved, it catches on like wildfire. And all of a sudden, people are just like, it's just, I guess it's mainstream media and how it works, where people just go, oh yeah, SEC is the best. So I like that Petitti and the Big Ten are saying, no, we're going to get this out there right now. We're top dog. And look at the last 2 years, and we need that respect. I love it.
You know, but it's super interesting because Petitti was like directly asked about, you know, whose conference is superior. And he didn't even, he said, we've won the last 2 championships. I like the guys that we have. I'm not going to get into that conversation. But just the way that you said it, the Big Ten right now, I think, is in lockstep. Like, they know they're top dog. They're trying to move as if they understand their top dog, but it's not something that they have to say. And I'm not doing this to like punch at the SEC, but these dudes literally will print materials to hand out at conference media day with, you know, factoids about scheduling and why their schedules are more superior and why they don't need to go to a 9-game conference schedule, and about all the national championships that they've won in the last 20 years or whatever the case is. And I thought it was pretty refreshing. Some people maybe thought it was a little bit weird or robotic, but to hear the coaches come in and basically express all of the same things. And this is if you're Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State and Michigan. This is if you're Iowa and Wisconsin and Minnesota. And this is if you're Northwestern and UCLA and some of the teams that are, you know, just trying to get things back figured out. The other thing, and I think it's a point that they haven't made enough, but they need to continue to make, is in a conference with 18 teams, the ability to have the play-in weekend, which was talked about. And a lot of people are like, well, how come the team that finished, you know, 3rd or 4th in the conference should have an opportunity to get knocked out? Those are also the same people that said, well, who did Indiana really play in the Big Ten? Right. And so to balance things a little bit more and to also have really good TV inventory at the end of the year, they talked about this this play-in weekend, and I think it's a super intriguing idea.
Well, I think you're kind of also seeing direct correlation parallels with Petitti saying this should be an NFL type playoff format.
Right.
And last time I checked, people love the NFL playoff format, and people love expansion with a good product. So I really don't see an issue, for at least from our vantage point. I mean, this is a conference we're covering, and I think there's great basis points to support Petitti's argument. But I'm lockstep and key with everything he's saying. Like, I just feel like this is exactly a legitimate argument, and for good reason. You're going to see quality football, teams that deserve to be in there and can make some noise.
Yeah, one of the points was about, you know, if one of the teams who gets knocked out, let's say you were like the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, and you get knocked out by 6 in the play-in, and so 6 is now a team that was 8-4 in the regular season. People are like, well, do they really deserve to be in? And Petitti's making the point that, you know, in the pro leagues, sometimes you get teams that aren't even 500.
Wild card teams win Super Bowls. 9 and 7 Steelers have won Super Bowls that way.
And my biggest argument to the people who would be mad about an 8-4 team getting into the college football playoff is you should have never expanded the damn postseason, right? Because it was a sport before where that would have never happened. But this is what you asked for. You asked for this possibility anyway, so now we got to live with it. So if this is a world that we're going to get to, I actually think this is the right format. And I've mentioned this before with Nicole, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I think this actually is a benefit if you're the ACC in the Big 12, because you have the guaranteed spots. And I'm actually not a huge AQ guy, but I do think this makes the most sense if we're trying to figure out how we can preserve some of the, you know, the ability for everybody to get in on a regular year. Because if you're leaving it up to the committee, they're putting the 1 ACC, probably 2 ACC, maybe 3, but they're giving you 1 Big 12 team, and that's all you're getting.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for. I do think the pageantry of the sport, like your alma mater or your team you root for is yours, but there's also a pageantry behind the conferences. I think people are ACC people are Big Ten, people are SEC. I like, no matter what that number 1 team is coming out of that conference, I'd like to see that style match up with another one, because it can still, styles make fights. And as a basketball guy, that's what I came from with the March Madness, that tournament, and how it's aligned. It may not be the most talented team, but their style matches up kind of nice with said conference's team who has a better record, who has more talent, who's maybe outperformed them all year. And it provides for a good matchup in a sport that is king in our country. So I'm okay with that completely. I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, and to your point, like the conference champs from the last playoff, we saw, an Arizona State that was able to go toe-to-toe with Texas. And some people would say that if the officiating in that game went a little bit differently, right?
That one, what was it? A rough in the pass interference late in the game?
Yeah.
It dictated everything.
Right.
I mean, that could have gone Arizona State's way.
It could have very easily. And then Clemson, they had some juice when they went out there in their first round game as well. Believe they played Texas in that game, right? Like, they can. So it's not to say that the top tier teams in those conferences can't compete, but there is that question about how many of those teams you think could get into the postseason. All right. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, you're joining our guys on the road, Castle, Mike Robb. So just let me know how you're feeling about that. You and Castle got to spend some good time together this week. Like what is your outlook for this season?
My mission this year as the host, because you guys know as the analysts, you're the experts. We're just supposed to, we're like an official. We're supposed to be there, but not really be known. Because if we're doing our job right, I'm getting the ball to my guys and they're handling business and they're teaching like you do in studio. So that's part of the mission. The other part of the mission is having spent that time with Castle. Mike Robb couldn't make it with a conflict in schedule, but we will obviously be seeing him week 1 at Michigan. My mission for the year is to take that personality that I saw of Matt Castle hanging out and how cool he is, how funny he is, how charismatic he is, how knowledgeable he is with his wealth of experience being a long tenured vet at the quarterback position in the league. I want that to come right on camera and everybody see it, because I had so much fun hanging out with the guy. And I think it'd be so much fun to see that. And I think he showed a lot of that. And he's still new in the TV game somewhat.
For sure.
And so him working alongside, we're going to have a lot of fun. And Mike Robb's a big personality. We're going to have fun, and we're going to have those eyes on the field for you guys in some really cool venues. So fun while learning and giving you kind of a peel back the curtain behind the scenes look. I'm really excited for it, man.
You guys on the road get to have all the fun. That's the real deal there is you get to have all the fun.
You say that now, but in some of these environments when maybe it's like 98 degrees and I'm in a suit,
I love it.
Sweating.
I want to sweat.
Okay. Well,
I can't even sweat in the studio.
What about if we're at, let's say Madison, Wisconsin?
Sure.
Late November, really, really cold.
I want to wear a scarf.
Okay,
I want to park.
So I'm soft. So I got to sift through these emotions, whereas you're built for this. That's the only thing I got to navigate is the elements, man. That's the only thing. But the venues themselves, I mean, when I'm doing the jump around, I don't care how cold it is. I'm be excited to be there, man. And we've got some big time matchups on the schedule this year.
And you guys do such a good job of bringing that to us through the screen. Because the thing that I miss the most is the environments and the fans and being around all of that. But, between what our behind the scenes people can do in terms of capturing the sights and the sounds, but the way that you guys talk about it and the way you're immersed down on the field in it is great. And I also agree with Castle. For folks who don't know him, he is like the greatest dude ever. He gives you a nice big old hug when you see him. Like he's as goofy as can be. And so you two are just going to tear it up alongside Mike Robb, who is maybe the most interesting human being.
And I got a lot of stories. So, and I heard it won't be oversold because he will equally deliver. So I can't stress this part enough for the avid listeners of this, because I was a listener. Now I'm a teammate with you guys in this element. Like the group is fantastic. Like it's just such a fun, selfless teammate first group. Funny, gregarious, passionate for the product in which they're covering. And that's what makes it fun. This is not some mail-in job, collect a check. Everybody lives a passionate belief in what they're doing. And there's a genuine care for each other and a teammate vibe. I'm juiced to be a part of the team, JP.
Dude, I'll say it like this, and maybe we can finish on this note, not to be like corny, but I feel like college football is that sport, though. It's that sport where, the team is the most important thing, right? Like it's always been about doing for somebody else. It's always been about developing the relationship. college football is also the sport that's been about fun, right? Like the NFL, as much as I love that sport, like you could put that in a TV studio. You could play the game in the TV studio, and I'd feel the same way about it, right? Like it's going to be an awesome game. It's going to be the best players in the world, but there's just that thing about college football that's different and unique and fun. And I feel like our group is different and unique and fun. And we're excited to get kicked off here for the start of the college football season.
I don't think you could have said it any better. I think the biggest issue for you in studio is going to be, with all that wealth of knowledge you guys have up there, is trying to take that time back from us, because we might try to hold it down on the field. We might try and take even more time.
Dude, you should punch Mike Robb if he starts. He does a walk and talk, and sometimes he wanders a little bit too far.
So we got to
make sure he's reeled in so we can hit our time.
So that's going to be part of my requirement as well.
Yeah, but you got long arms though. You could just reach out and snatch him as he starts to drift a little bit too far.
That's right. Yeah. That's right, man. I'm looking forward to it, JP. I'm happy to be on here, rushing the field, doing my best to fill in for the great Nicole. But it's gonna be a fun year, man. I can't wait.
No,
I really can't wait.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. We're excited. A lot of people obviously excited. I know folks out there are excited to watch their teams, and everybody's hopeful this time of year. So we'll see what we got in store here. But that'll do it for us. My guy Jordan Cornette joining us, filling in for Nicole Auerbach. I'm Joshua Perry. This was Rushing the Field, and we will see you all later on.